First, I want to torture you with two 30-second clips of Larry Elder, who is running for governor of California. The recall race happens on September 14th to recall Governor Gavin Newsom being governor of California. It appears he will not be removed, but you just never know. So Larry Elder is running. He's in the lead. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. There is a robust career for the delusional Black Republican. You can go very, very far not having much experience. So here is Larry Elder talking to Candace Owens last week about reparations. Listen to this.
Do you know that the slave owners were compensated? After they lost their quote unquote property, the government compensated slave owners.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And so when people talk about reparations, do they really want to have that conversation? Because like it or not, slavery was legal. And so their property, their legal property was taken away from them after the Civil War. So you can make an argument that the people that are owed reparations, and not only just Black people, but also the people whose quote property, close quote, was taken away after the end of the Civil War.
And shame on, but not shocking that Candace Owens didn't even know that. Only because it's okay to not know things, but she wrote a book talking about escaping the Democratic plantation. So she's a hack, a grifter. Is this even worth breaking down? This is the kind of stuff that just history 101.
It is worth breaking down. Yeah, it is.
It is. Okay, let's go for it. I think even Clarence Thomas wouldn't like this one. I think even he would say, oh, damn, wait a minute. This is a little bit too far even for me. Let's be clear. First, it began as the D.C. Emancipation Act. I think this happens in 1862 under your boy President Lincoln that everybody loves. And in D.C., they gave reparations to D.C. slave owners who no longer had human bondage as property to exploit them. So they got, I think it was $100 or maybe it was $200 per piece of property that they owned in DC, right? Isn't that disgusting, right? Disgusting. And that's under Lincoln, right? And then once the Civil War ends, what happens is that for a brief period of time, enslaved people, they were given land. A lot of folks don't know this. Then when Lincoln is assassinated and that demon trash box vice president, Andrew, it's Johnson or is it Jackson? Johnson. That demon Andrew Johnson decides to take away the land that was briefly given to enslaved people. Look it up. It's called Special Field Order number 15. Took away the land that was given to them because they lost the war, this little thing called a war, a civil war, the Confederacy, right? They lost it and they were considered treasonous. This is, it was crimes against the country, and they gave it back to the slave owners, right? This happens all throughout the country, but it really happens in Florida. This is the term where 40 acres and a mule comes from. That we never got it. We did get it for a hot minute, and there was an uproar at the time, and they were allegedly, not even allegedly, this was reports because generals had to go down to these areas and say, we're taking this land from you. There were women on their hands and knees sobbing. There were Black men saying, you can't do this to us. You've given us this land and you're taking it away from us. And that's what they did. And then we could talk about Reconstruction. I mean, mind you, you're having locally, you're having slave owners being compensated all over the country. But Reconstruction is essentially a failure for Black folks, right?
Right.
It's a failure for Black folks. When they see it being a little bit successful, they take it away and essentially get their political reparations that we're here today. You have an area like Wilmington, North Carolina. I think it was the 1890 riots in Wilmington, North Carolina. They came in and took over that area. They took over the government, the courthouse, and massacred the Black elected officials, let the white elected officials escape, and massacred and took over that area. So white Southerners have been getting reparations for decades. They specifically got it after the Civil War in many areas, and it would continue politically. So this idea that Larry Elder, a 69-year-old Black man, is saying that, oh, well, if we talk about reparations, that'll go to the ancestors of the slaveholders. Good God Almighty. The issue is enslaved people never got reparations. They never got it. That's the issue. So I would think this is even too much for Cotton to Congress, Tim Scott. Like, this is really, really extreme. This is over the top that he would say something so heinous, so disgusting, and just completely disrespectful to Black history. You want to add anything to it, David?
Yeah, so a couple things. First of all, I just say full disclosure to Clay Nation. I don't know Larry Elder. Back in 2015, we used to do a lot of panels together on Newsmax. I found him to be a nice enough guy. I don't want to run him down, but in this specific case, what he's saying is bullshit. For all the reasons you stated, including that, you know, as a talk host, it's sometimes your job, a right-wing radio talk shows, to say provocative things. But I think Larry Elder is smart enough to know that what he's saying doesn't hold water, doesn't make sense. It's not even a sound point as a counterintuitive, provocative point. The 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. The 13th Amendment did away with slavery. The 14th Amendment, essentially, I just pulled it up just to look at it. The 14th Amendment made everyone born in the United States a citizen, and the 15th Amendment had to do with not abridging the right to vote. You take the Emancipation Proclamation, you take the Civil War, forget about whether Lincoln was a good guy or a bad guy or what the motivations on each side were. Those things transformed legally. I mean, morally, slavery was never defensible, obviously, but legally, they transformed us from being property into citizens, okay? It does not follow that once the country foundationally, not in some little municipal law, but in the Constitution, finds that we are people and citizens and have full rights, whether or not those rights were actually given down the road. The people who formerly owned us, that now the society says we should never have been owned in the first place, you don't get reparations for that. If anything, your reparation, I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say, your reparation is that you weren't locked up from owning other human beings. Okay, right. So that's number one. And I'm going to let Reese jump in, but one more quick point is that I favor reparations for African Americans for slavery. We've had this discussion before. But even though I'm for reparations, I can think of arguments against reparations. They're not ones that I hold, but I can think of at least interesting,
better than his argument,
noteworthy arguments against slave reparations. But the fact that slave owners didn't get reparations for the people they previously owned is not a good argument against us getting reparations for our ancestors having been slaves. It's just a point that a radio talk host makes to sound different or interesting. And I agree with you, Clay, that I can't imagine a Senator Scott, another major Black Republican, endorsing that. I'm a little less sure about where Justice Thomas lands, but I tend to agree with you that even
could be wrong.
Probably be like, yeah, fall back, Larry. Fall back.
I think he might even be against this one. Right. Before you jump in, Reese, I just want to add the other half of this. Okay. So Larry Elder yesterday is on his little campaign run, and he is in Venice, California, and he goes to a homeless camp in Venice, California. It's so loud, it's hard for you to really hear it because we're on the radio. But I want to play a brief clip of some of the folks protesting, yelling at candidate Larry Elder. Listen to this.
Why the hell are you doing that for a black man? You sorry piece of shit. Sorry piece of motherfucker. My whole 50 million people come here and see the hell out here. What the fuck?
What the F you gonna do for a black man, you sorry piece of ass, whatever. All right, that's what they said. So then there is a woman in a mask throwing an egg at Larry Elder, right? And conservatives are losing their shit. they are screaming, this is racism. These Democrats that look at this look at this Democrat who threw an egg at Larry Elder. It's racism. And Larry Elder looks terrified and he's scurrying away. Oh my God, Candace Owens is babbling on Fox and it's racism, racism, racism. Here's my thing. One, they're saying she was in a gorilla mask. I could be wrong. I think it's a goblin mask, right? So, whatever it is, search for it, find it. But I think it's wrong and horrible that anybody was throwing eggs at somebody. I'm not for that. But how do you know she's a Democrat? How do you know she's a quote unquote lib? How do you even know she's a registered voter? You don't even know her name? How do you know her political affiliation? Like, it's just so funny to me. You're making an assumption that she is some raging Democrat. She may not even be able to vote. How do you know her story? But they're attaching themselves to it. These are the same people. I mean, the outrage over this that I'm seeing, but little to no outrage over the January 6th insurrectionists. Larry Elder has said that there really isn't a race problem in America. So is Candace Owens. And now you're babbling about a allegedly homeless woman in a mask throwing eggs at you. And it's racism. So it's interesting to me. How do you know what her political affiliation is? The majority of people in America are non-voters. That's the largest voting bloc, the non-voter. So yeah. So your thoughts on that, Reese, and the shock on Larry Elder's face. And all I could think of was, is it that N-word wake-up call? Go ahead.
Well, listen, she probably is a racist ass white liberal leftist because, I always say, there is a white supremacy problem on the left. Okay. They definitely had their issues. It was a lot of people, white leftists and anti-fascist people who were all up in the black cops' face yelling at them. They didn't have the same smoke for the white cops. So I'm never gonna, downplay racism from white people because, even if it's against a black person, I don't care for it. It is what it is with that. She could have kept the mask and handled her business with the egg. Now the mask made it a little bit more racist, but am I sympathetic? Hell no, because he got his N-word wake-up call. And, it's really funny how, like you said, these same people, they don't see racism until it personally impacts them or until when it's coming from the opposite side. Because if you had a Republican that threw an egg at him or whatever, there wouldn't be a race issue. But because they believe that it's a Democrat or a left-leaning person, then she did have the gorilla mask, which is hella racist. Then all of a sudden, now you see racism. It's the same thing with even like Breonna Grayjoy, not to change the subject, who she talks about how identity politics is weaponized. But then when she getting some smoke, all of a sudden, oh, a black woman this, a black woman that, I'm a black woman. Like, oh, okay. So now you all black and proud when it's convenient for you. So there's a lot of that going on. But I don't feel sorry for Larry Elder. And, I'm trying so hard not to use a racial slur because I try not to call black people, racial slurs. There's a particular one I have in mind, starts with C, ends with N, but I'm not going to verbalize it because that's what he is. But at a minimum, I'll call him a quisling because that's what he is. He does the work of white supremacy. And that's why his black ass ain't going to be governor. Because let me tell you something. The Latinos that wasn't really fooling with Gavin Newsom, they saw this black man and his crazy ass was the number one leading person. They said, oh, no, let's jump back on the Gavin Newsom train. So his blackness is definitely working against him in California. You've never had a black governor in California. Kamala Harris, Vice President Kamala Harris, was the first black person to be attorney general, first black person to be senator there. So California is not ripe ground for a black politician to get to the highest.
Wasn't she the first black woman DA in San Francisco as well?
Yes, first black DA of any gender.
Black DA in general.
Yes.
Oh, geez.
So there's never been a black before her. There was never, and after either, never a black DA of any gender, never a black senator of any gender, never a black attorney general of any gender in California. So California is not really the place for black politicians. So he gonna get his N-word wake-up call from that. He almost squeaked in there with 15-16% of the vote, but now he's starting to realize that he's still the rest. Okay. But as far as the reparations, so first of all, let's be clear. White slave owners stole trillions of dollars of labor. I didn't hear y'all mention that part. So how the hell you get reparations after you done already stole some shit? That's like labor. You get caught stealing at Target. They take your shit away and then you turn around and be like, okay, well, I need a refund for what I just stole. That does not make any goddamn sense. Right. That's literally the whole point of reparations is because something was
taken from you. Right. Excellent point.
Damn it! I've had this property for about 5-6 years. You better give me a refund on the property that I stole. Yeah, no, absolutely. That's because I'm gonna tell you something.
You come to my house and you take some shit, and I catch you with it. I'm gonna take it back and I'm gonna beat your ass. And I dare you take me to Judge Judy talking about, oh, you owe me for the price of that TV I stole. Hell no. So let's just get real on that. People like to forget that actual economic power in this country is derived from enslaved people's labor. That's why the United States is a great power. Because of our labors. It's because of our intellectual property that we brought here. We're the ones who honed a lot of these techniques and, fostering farmland and things of that nature. We brought that here. So our power, our worth goes far beyond the land or the property. I mean, they valued each person at X number of hundreds of dollars or whatever, but we literally gave trillions. Well, I wouldn't say we gave trillions of dollars of labor was extracted and stolen from us. That's why we deserve reparations, in addition to not just the stolen labor part, but the way that the family bonds are broken, the cruelty we have in the Constitution against cruel and unusual punishment, right? But that's what the hell happened to us every single day was cruel and unusual punishment. And so it goes so far beyond that. I don't understand who he thinks he's appealing to with that argument. I mean, maybe that might appeal to a certain small segment of the population, and maybe he's just trying to get to 20% of the electorate in California in case the recall succeeds. But it's a very, very bizarre argument to even be making in 2021 in California of all places, because they already have that's passed.
Let me add this really quick, because I want to make sure I make this clear. This is an important point that Reese brought up. The woman in the mask, whether it was a gorilla mask or a goblin mask, I'm not saying she isn't a racist. She could definitely be a racist. So I'm in no way saying that. I'm just saying that I find it funny that their narrative is the Dems and the libs, and we just don't know who this person is. But she can most definitely be a racist, and she should not be throwing eggs at anybody. It's ridiculous. But it's funny how the narrative changes when you suddenly think that you are the victim. And to add to that, if a white politician would have said what Larry Elder said about reparations, that slave owners, that would be headline news. You didn't see too much news on this, but because he's black, he could get away with it. But if a white politician would have said out of his face, well, slave owners should get it too because they freaking lost their property, that would be some Nazi, white supremacy, KKK shit that would be headline news on every major news station.
Governor's race. They'd be saying drop out of the governor's
exactly. So that's really important what he can get away with. Go ahead.
Let me just jump in and say, to your point and to Reese's point, right. I actually do think that mask might be a gorilla mask, might not be, but let's just say,
I don't know.
Let's just say for discussion that it is a gorilla mask. Let's just say for discussion, to Reese's point, that person is a racist. And let's just say to your point, Clay, we don't know that she's a Democrat, but let's say
even if she
is a Democrat.
Who cares?
Okay, that just means you have one racist, egg-throwing Democrat who the police should come and give her a citation for disorderly conduct. Absolutely. That doesn't translate to there's this, overbearing racist Democratic attack on Larry Elder, because there clearly isn't.
Yeah,
it's one person.
There's not a concern like,
and that person should be condemned for throwing an egg, and if being a racist, then for being a racist too. It's that person who should be.
But I just also want to say though, one real quick. I don't ever like the argument being made that racism is only on the Republican side. Now, Republicans are exceptionally hostile in terms of their systemic racism and the policies that they put forward. I think that that on the Democratic side, we have people, they have a white is right problem, a white is default problem. You got to run the white man for any kind of race. We have that kind of issue. We have the class, not race issue, the identity politics, all that kind of stuff. So there's a different element, but I don't vouch for Democrats not being racist. There's a lot of racist ass Democrats, and there's a lot of racist ass Republicans, but it's a matter for Black people in terms of our survival, who is out to make us second class citizens, as opposed to who just be like, y'all keep y'all Black asses over there.